So one of the things you've been trying is the Rafa Festa 500,
Yeah.
which is the Rafa kind of initiative, right? What is it, 500 kilometers, which is like 310-ish miles.
Yeah.
Between Christmas and New Year's or something like that?
Christmas Eve to New Year's Eve. So so you have 8 days to finish a 310 miles.
It's like a challenge
Yeah.
that you don't need to sign up for, really. You can just do it.
Yeah.
You can, I think, if you want to, but so last year, well, 2019, you
Back when things
did
were
the whole
okay.
thing in one day.
In
Central Park.
Central Park.
First, somebody told me Prospect Park is like, and then this past year, so 2020,
2020.
you and I think 2 or 3 other guys tried to do it again.
Yeah.
In, also in Central Park, and I was hearing about it, it's like, oh, Central Park. That's a lot unless you have like people to draft off and you have your nutrition dialed in, and
Yeah.
because you do the math and you're like 310 miles.
It's like 52 laps.
52 laps. So but even if you average like 15 miles an hour, which is actually, it doesn't sound like much, but you have to like stop and you have to pee and you have to eat and you have to do this. You know, if you have to do all that, then time adds up really quickly. And you're like looking at definitely riding from dawn till dusk.
Past that, yeah.
And past, right? Which I'm assuming is what you did the first year. How you made it the first year?
I made it the first year. Spoiler alert, I didn't finish it this time around.
Let's talk about the positives.
All right, the positive first. So I started like 5 a.m. Like right when like the park was opening up, and like I know there's like kind of like the park is open from dawn and dusk rules, and I didn't want to get kicked out or because that would throw a wrench into it. But I got into the park. I did my ride. I had a lot of friends who showed up and was like, oh, like, let's see if this guy can actually do it. And like, like I'm not gonna lie, people came out and like I got drafted. But I didn't ask anyone to like give me like
I
to
don't
pull
think
me
you
along.
need to apologize for that.
Yeah.
I think you need that.
It was definitely very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not like, I was talking about that too with people. Well, it's not like you can actually draft the whole time because it's there's some hills, it's a little tricky actually.
Yeah. But yeah, like people came out. It was great. Like, I think that was one of the first times I was like really appreciative of the community. Like beyond just like road cycling friends, I had like fixed gear friends or like people who just ride bikes like recreationally and don't race or like do anything in this like intense manner. And it was great because it brought so many different people together. And I think I had friends who met other friends and like now they're friends, and I thought that was awesome. But I started at 5. I think I finished my ride at 3:30 a.m. the next day. it was very, very hard.
Okay, so you were pretty committed.
Yeah, I was committed.
That's okay, I think so that's like, so we're talking 22 and a half hours.
22 and a half hours. It was a long time. I think my total break time was like 2.5 hours the whole day.
Okay.
So I rode for
moving. Yeah.
My moving time was 20 hours. My break, like my full time was 23 hours. I was super stoked on it.
Yeah.
It was great.
I mean, I was talking to people before your second attempt, and I didn't know you had done it. It was like, so I did the math, and I'm like, well, even if you have people to draft off, like you said, with the moving time, right? The problem of like stopping, unless you have like people giving you food on the ride, and you're like just jumping off to pee somewhere. Even then, you have to kind of keep going. I think the weather kind of has to be. I mean, it's late in the year, so the weather is a factor, right? And people always like. I think when you're not in New York, you think like New York's flat, and it's not hilly, but it's going up and down. And Central Park, especially, like in Prospect Park, you can kind of, there's 2 places you can just kind of let it roll.
Yeah,
it's fine,
100%.
it's flat. But in Central Park, it's either a little bit up or a little bit down.
Yeah.
Kind of, and that kind of gets to you after a while.
I think, after
because like those rollers. I would imagine like 20 hours in, that wasn't fun anymore.
No, the West Side rollers were like, that was the bane of my existence. Like I did not want to roll over. I like slow pedaled, just like located.
They suck in the race, but they really suck 20 hours into that ride.
Yeah. I actually, after I hit like 200 and like after like 220 miles, I stopped doing Harlem Hill. I was done. Like I'm not doing that hill anymore.
Yeah.
At that point, I had already had like 16,000 feet of climbing, and it's like short 300 miles, but also 16K of climbing is a lot for one ride for anyone. You know, like we don't climb out here, and it's not something we do.
No, and
so
it just adds up over that distance. Right? 16,000 feet of climbing is a lot.
Yeah,
and so you Harlem Hill, you kind of is at the very north end for those who know at the park, and then you go down by that ice rink, and then you go up, and it's it's not long, but it's steep enough that it's going to start hurting.
It's like it's not like you can have like a gentle gradient where you can just kind of like push a little harder. That's not it.
No.
And it's the same thing with Cat's Paw.
Just long enough too, right? That same with Cat's Paw. It's long enough that it starts hurting, but so you just went and took the left before you go down. Mm-hmm.
And it's like that was one of the places where I could like chill and like kind of like let it roll. And it was nice, but
because it's a little gentle downhill, then you're on the West Side Rollers, and then so you cut it off at like 90 something street or whatever it is,
and then come back. So that's what I did. And
were you still riding with people like 20 hours in, or were you like still going solo at that point?
I think people.
And I guess you did the trip out of the park.
I didn't. You know what's funny though? Like there was this police car that was parked like right at that transverse, like the 90th Street transverse. That was parked there from like park close till when I left. He didn't say anything to me until my last lap in the park. So I was like, holy shit, like I can't believe he just let me do this. And he was probably sleeping or something. I don't know what he was doing, but I was doing laps and laps, and every time I passed him, it was like I try to be as like moving as slowly as possible, so he didn't see me and didn't say anything to me. But he didn't say anything to me, and then when he finally did, that was my last lap, and I was like, perfect. This
so what was like, that's your last lap song, or was it?
He didn't know it was my last lap, but it just so happened to be the last lap.
Did he encourage you to leave the park? Or?
No, he was like, hey buddy, park's closed, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry man, I'm on my last lap, and I was like, oh, it was cool. I was like, and I rolled down and then made my exit like at the 7th Avenue one, at the bottom of the park, and that it was just perfect timing.
And then it's 3:30 a.m. and you're collapsing at home, or you found food somewhere?
Oh man, 3:30 a.m. I got back. So the building I was in was a walk up. Luckily, I was on the 2nd floor. I got off my bike. It took me like an hour and like change to walk up one set of flights. My back was gone. My legs were done.
Getting off the bike probably was.
Getting off the bike was hard. Kind of like throwing my leg over. I just. Like that was one thing that I was like thinking about this year is like, hey, like I need to stretch like during my breaks and stuff. Something I didn't do last year, but basically, like it was extremely difficult. But like I got up, and then I had enough like leg mobility that I could do everything I need, like just get in the shower and then went to bed type of thing. That's all I did. I just took a shower, then like I like looked at the ride. Like after you're done with the ride, you always have to look at it. No matter how tired you are, you're gonna look at that ride. You're gonna do it. It's just,
you're on Strava.
Yeah, I was on Strava. I was thrilled because my name was like for US. I was on top of the leaderboards. I was like, yo, I like.
This is for the Festive 500.
Festive 500 challenge. I was super thrilled. Like for the first time ever, I'm first in something, and it was great. It's funny because one of the guys that kind of inspired me to do it is he's an employee in the LA Raffle Shop who's doing a ride like this every year in one shot. But like I came up above him like just by a couple miles. Like holy shit! Like it's so surreal because like I did it. It's like really like I was soaking it in. And it's like damn, like this feels great.
That's an accomplishment. I mean, just finishing that it would be in any time would be an accomplishment. But then doing it in 24 hours and really self-supported is what we could call it, right? I mean, I'm sure somebody gave you something, but like you were. Well, what did you? How did you get water and how do you eat and all that? Like, what did you?
So I actually relied on. Well, like one of the reasons I chose Central Park. Well, like we discussed the reason I chose it, but like basically Central Park it's in the middle of everything. It's like if I need to bail out at any time, like home's like 3 miles away. Like if it's different if I'm like riding on the road, like home isn't 3 miles away. Like I gotta do a lot of work to get somewhere to get home, and then like that's like I'm this was like sporadic, so I didn't know what I would do if like I got stranded somewhere. And also, luckily at Engineers Gate and West 96-ish, there are 2 places you can stop. There's a Bluestone Lane, which is a coffee shop, and next door to it's a church that has a public bathroom. So that was great. I went there a couple times. Like I could refill up water and then also use the bathroom there.
Up until a certain time at least.
Yeah, up until a certain time at least. And then on the West 96th Street side, right when you come out, there's this deli on the corner. That's a 24-hour deli.
Yeah, all right. You found that out that night?
I found that out that night. Okay. I was like, oh my god, like I'm dying. Like I need a Red Bull. I need something warm. I made a mistake of wearing like I actually wore this jacket. It's like thermal insulated. Yeah, no, it's like a thermal insulated jacket. It's nice. It's super packable, so I could keep it in my frame bag. So like when it got colder, I could pull it out and like be warm. But the problem is that it's not windproof. So all
You
the
were
wind
cold.
was getting, I was getting cold, and I needed like coffee. And I swear to God, like had I not had that the deli, I don't think I would have made it. Like it was a struggle.
Yeah.
I that was my longest break of that day, and I was in that deli and I was freezing. I had like 30 miles left to go. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. But
Still
it was
like
like,
5
it's only
laps,
30, yeah, just like 30 miles. But like, I went back out and I did it. But like that deli was a godsend.
Yeah.
It was really good.
Yeah.
But in terms of like packing and stuff, like I had a frame bag.
Yeah.
I filled that to the brim with SIS gels. Most of them were green apple ones. People ask me if I'm sick of those yet. They still to this
That's your
day
flavor.
are my favorite flavor. Green
Yeah.
apple and pineapple SIS gels are so good. So that's what I had for most of the day. Sometimes I would have like a friend would bring me a pastry, or like when we stopped at Bluestone Lane, I would grab a pastry there and
Yeah.
like just have some
Yeah,
solid
yeah,
food. I also did like peanut butter jelly sandwiches that I would eat like while on the bike. So
Yeah.
I really focused on staying on the bike for as long as possible and taking as like little breaks
Yeah.
as possible.
Because you move, and I mean that's what they talk about when they're doing like race across America. Or something like that. Every moment you stop, that's like losing time.
You're
Right?
losing
You gotta
time.
keep rolling somehow.
Exactly. So for me, like I started the morning with like this huge bowl of oatmeal and like chia seeds and like honey and like super carb heavy, and like I had carbs the day before too, so I was like super carb loaded, and like I had that, and then 1 hour into the ride I started eating, and then every 20 minutes I was eating something like clockwork.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, yo, I gotta eat this gel. Like, I don't care if like I slow down a little bit. I'm gonna eat this gel and keep rolling.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, I just need to keep in motion.
Yeah, and I think that the eating is really key, right? I mean,
Yeah.
once you get behind with that, you have a problem. But yeah, it sounds like you consumed a bunch of carbs and calories, and without, I mean, I'm assuming you hadn't done like anything of that kind of crazy nature before, so that
No.
means that you kind of went in a little bit just optimistic and just like, let's see what happens.
Yeah,
And,
let's see what
like,
happens.
motivated, obviously, but like, I'm sure you read up a little bit on like nutrition, what to do, and thought about it. But
Yeah.
it wasn't like I said, it wasn't like you had a pit crew or something like that.
No, definitely not. I think a lot of it was just like, yo, I just need to have like trainer rule is like, yo, you should consume 90 to 100 grams of carbs an hour. So I'm like, how many is that?
I was just talking about that with some teammates. It was like 900 grams of carb is an insane amount if you think about it.
That's 3 gels, and that's every 20 minutes, right? Like
4 or 5. But anyway,
Yeah, okay.
But
Yeah.
it's more than the average person would consume.
yeah.
Naturally, kind of thing. But you force yourself, and you made it happen. Like, so you no hiccups, no major obstacles to overcome, not a ton of flats or anything.
No flats. I was
no
riding
hunger
two-
flat. No,
Oh, I mean, I definitely, the worst thing about my ride was my headphones died when everyone left. So I was by myself in the dark, like rolling, and like no one was there to keep me company. So like, not that anyone had to be there to keep me company, but it was like not having that was like
in the dark.
like kill me.
Yeah.
Like it died at like the most like at the worst time basically. Like
yeah. I mean, it's probably good that you're able to focus on the road because you probably did end up getting pretty tired.
yeah, 100%.
But you had no close calls, accidents, so that was a really smooth run in a lot of ways. Even though like, it really pushed you a lot, but you made it happen. And so you averaged like 20 hours moving time. Like, so when you were on the bike, you averaged like what 13?
I think like 15.6 miles an hour.
rolling, but then
Yeah.
if you take the 2 hours of stopping in, and obviously it drops very quickly. And that's what I meant with like, it's really hard to do it in Central Park, especially like in this kind of unassisted mode, more so unassisted mode.
Yeah.
We like, it's a lot of time on a pretty hilly course.
Mhm.
And this year, let's talk a little bit about this year. What changed, and you don't have to like, I think I saw your social media post. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, well, I mean, I was before, and I'm sorry. I'm German, so I'm always pessimistic. Like,
Yeah.
maybe I think maybe you can, with the Chinese immigrant family, see some connections there.
It's
about
not
being very
pessimistic.
real.
I think it's more like be realistic. Like
Yeah,
like, it's
I was like,
can
you know,
really
I'm
make
gonna
that?
give him like a 40%. And when I has to add that, like the day was like super windy too.
Oh my
I
god,
think.
yeah.
And I was like, so then somebody said, oh, he's done it before, and like, but then they said in Prospect Park. I was like, I could see in Prospect Park, but in Central Park, like, how are you gonna do it? And I did the math, and like, and now that I know that you've done it in like 22 hours and just an insane amount of like perseverance, like, because I was like, well, if you want to do it in daylight, that's probably not possible actually for the average person.
Yeah.
Like, and you're not even an average person. You're clearly a trained, and you've done this. And I was like, I didn't have a lot of faith. I gotta be honest. But
And
now
it's
I know
okay.
what you did the year before, so I was clearly wrong. But this
Yeah.
year I was right because What's your analysis?
All right, so I think one of the things that I really messed up on was I started the ride a lot earlier this year at 4 a.m. So we're in the park and
Did you like give me some buffer or why?
oh, well, I wanted to kind of get back at a more reasonable time, just because I like my girlfriend like lives with me now. I don't want her to stay up till like 3 a.m. waiting for me to get
Worry
back.
about
You
you.
know, it's
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I live a lot closer to the park now. That's one of the reasons I was actually going to do it in CrossFit Park this year.
Okay.
But I chose Center Park just because of proximity,
Right.
and also like the idea of like crossing the bridge after 300 miles is not fun.
Not a good idea.
Yeah, it was, like doesn't sound good.
No. You want to be very close to home if you can.
Yeah, so that's why I did Center Park again this year. This year I started early at 4, and the roads were really wet. They were like when I started it was a little drier, but like it got wetter and wetter throughout the day just because kind of like the snow was melting and like.
Was it snowy that day?
I think there was like residual snow.
Yeah,
residual snow, and like because of snow, there's salt, and then it just got wet, and like at certain temperatures, like the ground starts sweating. I don't know, like you know what I mean? Like it gets like very moist and like kind of damp. So when I started, it was wet enough that there was like a little bit of spray, and being like. I was like, hey, like I don't think I'm gonna need to wear glasses in the morning because it's just gonna it's gonna be early, and you know, like I wasn't expecting it to be like wet like the way it was, but that's where I really messed up because I didn't have glasses on from the beginning. If you guys everyone that's ridden Central Park or like kind of like is on Strava knows what horseshit climb is.
Yeah. So there's, when you're in the center of the park and the tourists enjoy once in a while, or some of them enjoy the very old-fashioned or whatever traditional horse carriage ride.
Yeah.
The horses leave stuff behind, and especially on a part that's leading up kind of towards the Camp Paul Fish at the very southern end of the park, and the Strava segment was like Horseshit Alley or something. Like that.
Basically.
And, in the races when it rains, everybody knows.
Keep your mouth shut.
Keep your mouth shut, keep your glasses on. Ideally, if you can, don't ride right behind someone, even at least for just like 30 seconds or something.
Or it's not
or
pleasant.
be nice and don't ride right through it.
Yeah.
And, so yeah.
That was my first mistake, I think, with like the moisture and just the way the roads were. That like the spray. I actually one of the reasons, like spoiler alert, one of the reasons I pulled the plug was because my eye started like growing. It was like started bulging. Definitely think it was infected for a little bit, and then I got back and the first thing I did was wash my eye because it was really swelling up, and it was like we were like halfway through the miles. Like there's no way I can finish the rest of this ride with a swollen eye.
So you did 170.
Yeah,
150,
like I think about 180.
Just
like
still a long day on the.
Yeah, it's still a long day.
I think that's about the longest I've ever worked. So it's a very, very long day.
Yeah. But basically that was one of the things. We had
and you got wet, I'm assuming too.
Sorry?
You got wet.
Yeah, I got wet.
Once you get wet, that's a whole other story too. The year before was dry, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it was very dry. It was windy, but it was dry. I think I knew that it was gonna be wet, and like I still was like, let's do it. Like it's just water, right? But like it's not just water because you have the salt from the ground, and then you have the horse shit.
Yeah,
it's so bad because I had fenders set up, like fenders for my bike set up, but then it kept me mostly dry.
Yeah.
But there's still spray from your bikes that all of that spray, it ended up on my bottles. So when I try to drink it, it tastes like wet cement, and there's like you would taste like the salt in the bottle, and then
I've had that before.
Like it was like I couldn't hydrate. It was hard. Thinking back on it, I probably should have done it on a day that was a little more ideal. But like there was this other guy who did it like so long ago, who did like a 24-hour like Pepsi marathon event.
Yes, I read about that.
Yeah,
yes.
I think his name's also Jonathan.
Okay.
Yeah, so he did it, and he did like insane amount of miles, and he did it the whole time it was raining. So it was raining, and it's like if this guy can do it in the rain, I can do it too. It's great. We'll do it. It'll be awesome.
Yeah, you're referring to like an event in the 80s or something. Somebody did like the national record for 24-hour riding or something like that.
Yeah.
But I read up on that, to be fair. That guy had like a very coordinated drafting effort going on,
from
what I heard. And the kick is that I think the last like 4 hours he was wearing a catheter to just pee like on the go.
I remember reading about that too.
So you're like, that guy, he was prepared.
He was prepared, yeah.
And not that you weren't, but like you don't have to go to those extremes. And, like you shown that you go before, you can make 10 miles, which is, again, I think a pretty insane amount. So a combination of the wetness and just the weather that day, and then that really kind of
the
eye and the getting wet, that kind of
Yeah, I think it was more so the eye, and then I think we had I had ridden under pace actually. I was hoping for like to like at the time of day where we called the quiz, I was hoping to be at like kind of like 200 miles.
Yeah.
So it was like 20 miles behind pace.
It would have been a long day. Even
Long
if you
day,
wouldn't have been able to make it.
because I prepared, like I knew there were like storms coming in, and I had like the wet weather gear and like to keep me like as dry as possible. Because the thing about riding in the rain is like it's not bad as long as you prepare for it.
Yeah.
Like as long as you have the right clothing and
Yeah.
you're mentally prepared, then it's like you're gonna be a little uncomfortable, but like in such a long event you're gonna be uncomfortable anyways.
Yeah.
And it's just like how do you make yourself as comfortable as possible to keep going?
True.
And like I was prepared for the rain, but at that point like the winds had picked up so crazily. Like it wasn't even the rain that I was worried about, because like when you would come down the west side, like we were moving like under 10 miles an hour because the wind was just like blowing us back.
That's what I meant.
So
Like
strong.
it's a super strong wind, and I mean at some point you're gonna get cold too, right? I mean it's yes, you're saying like even the best gear, like if you're riding for that long, it's actually actively raining or there's less because it's coming from the top and from the bottom. Like you're gonna get wet, and then once you're wet and you're cold, you have a problem. Right? So I think you made the right decision there. You know, so kids don't try that at home. You know, don't ride 10 miles in Central Park or Prospect Park for that matter.
Honestly though, like
But maybe she should, yeah.
Maybe you should look at. I think like one of the things that like I realized was
Think about it first. Maybe don't think about it. I think ideally you probably like you had have people with you at times at least, you know.
Definitely plan for it for sure.
Plan for it.
Yeah.
A little bit of planning would be good. I mean, you know, I don't want to be all like teachery here, but like and then like you know like old guy telling you what to do. Enthusiasm goes a long way, as you've shown.
Huge. Oh
Goes a
my
huge
god!
amount,
Wait,
right?
like this is completely like weird and off like a tangent, but like still related ride. I was super enthusiastic that morning, and it was like 6 a.m. and
This was this year.
This year.
time? Yeah.
It was like, you know, like I was getting wet, but I was like, yo, like this is gonna be great. I'm gonna have a great time. Like I'm gonna get this. I'm like finish this ride. It's gonna be awesome. We're rolling past the group, and like this, I was so like enthusiastic that day that I was like waving at everyone. I was like, hey, good morning. How are you doing? And like I swear this blew my mind because we're passing this group, and I was like, good morning. And like this guy literally told me to stop being happy as we're passing him. And I was just like, good morning, like, I hope you have a great ride. Yeah, he was out riding with the group, and I guess, I mean, like, I don't know, I'm just trying to be nice, you know, like, you know, have a great morning, have a great ride, and he was, it blew my mind. I still think about it, and I was like, why was he so unhappy that morning?
Yeah,
I've never seen him before, but that's a tangent. We can get back to the conversation.
I think there's always going to be grumpy people, but I think overall, your story is one of happy people, of people that are easy to talk to, and you're a super, I think happy, outgoing person here. Like, you know, despite like I think when you're 310 miles ahead of you and it's raining, it's really easy to be kind of pessimistic. And you know, maybe I'll just stay in bed today. You know? And maybe like you said, you should have picked a different day. But I mean, you're working. You know, like you have a girlfriend and all. It's like you got to pick the day, and then you went with it. I appreciate that commitment there. And you did it for good cause too. You tried to write the whole thing for raise some funds for Star Trek, right?
Star Trek.
Which you did end up doing anyway.
Yeah, we did. I think like net we got about like $2,000, like a little over $2,000 for the program, which was then matched by like the campaign. Like basically their campaign was matched, so basically our $2,000 turned into like $4,000.
That's fantastic.
And it was great. Like I knew like this year going into it, if I was gonna do like something like a big ride like this, like just looking at like examples from everyone that's done like crazy things like Everesting, which is like a super big thing that happened this year in the 2020 with the pandemic.
Racing,
people were using these as opportunities to raise money for things that they believed in and they felt strongly about. And I was like it wouldn't make sense for me to not use this, which like I think on social media was a pretty big thing last year, and like kind of anticipating that something like this would happen again. Why not use that platform to raise money for something that I care about?
Totally.
And especially like, I guess we could go into talk about like why I chose Star Trek. Like
do it, because it's so funny. Like literally never planned to talk about Star Trek, and every time it comes up, and I want to fully give them like a lot of credit, but I also think it does show a little bit the lack of other programs in the city that do something similar, right? And there are other programs. There's like I've talked about this before. I challenge myself, but like for youth development especially, I think there could be more out there, at least racing oriented. But why did you pick it?
I picked it because I think, like coming from my background where like cycling or like kind of these sports are like not the first things that like people would be not the first thing people gravitate towards.
Yeah.
They made it so they lowered the barrier so much for children to try it, because it's like, hey, like for me, like I had to buy a bike to go ride this to like explore this. But now that they've removed that cost for like someone that's young to try it out, like your parent can't be like, no, you can't do this. Like
Right.
It doesn't make sense. Like maybe like, oh, it's dangerous, but it's like, and then you can be like, oh yeah, but it's a closed course. Like there's no cars, there's nothing to worry about.
Yep.
Like now, like people from my background, like their parents, they don't have an excuse to say no. Like the only thing is like, oh, it's too far. Like
So
don't
bikes
have
are
time.
provided.
Bikes are provided. Like the whole thing, it was so crazy too, because like the program is all about like lowering that barrier of entry.
Yeah.
And the time that we decided to do this, there was also the USAC news about like the development program for youth. It was like $10,000. Like what the hell? Like it's so like
there was
totally
a lot of. I know, just reading a post the other day, and then I'll hopefully next week talk to someone about that. That's
Okay.
a whole other conversation. But finish your thought, and we'll talk more about
basically,
that. Yeah.
like
And then
what
I should real quick say it's like the Olympic development program, which is the high end of development, but it reads oddly when you read something here for $10,500 per half year. You can get into this awesome program if you want to pay anyway. So
Yeah.
Star Trek's certainly a different model.
different model. I think kind of seeing that and like the contrast of like the two, like not missions, but like kind of like what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
It was like Star Trek's developed and helped develop like Olympic riders. Like Josh Pro, he's like a huge, like that's a huge story that gets brought up a lot, I think, and especially in like cycling media. So it's like
Just
certainly,
Artman, and
yeah.
I think they've produced riders before.
there's
Dream
like
about somebody, Stephanie Torres went to Marion University, and like got to play national championships there too. But yeah,
yeah, and then there's still like kids who are like not even 18, like Enzo Edmonds, who got like a couple like national like titles under his belt. And, like it's like they've done so much for people too, but there's no there's no like commitment like that. You know what I mean? Like no like monetary commitment. And to me it's like, wow, like this
or
is
at
so
least it's
different.
low, like,
Yeah,
but yeah, still.
but it's like, wow, like this program can do all this, and it's like I feel even strongly about it because like there are people who come from my background who like don't have much, or like first generation, and this is their intro to cycling. Like
Right.
some people, like a lot of people I meet like that are my age usually have family or friends who've been here, or like not friends, but like family or like family friends who are into cycling, and I've kind of shown them the ropes and gotten them into it. But like for someone who doesn't have something like that, like
Right.
Star Trek is like it's super easy. There's like no cost. It's just show up and ride bikes, and it's great because like it also naturally transitions them into racing,
Right.
and that's great too. There's actually a Star Trek rider that came out that day and rode with me for a little bit, and we're talking about like how like not everyone loves the program, and
Right.
not everyone not everyone's gonna love like cycling, but what's important is that option is available
Right.
for them to like try it and really like, oh, do I like this? And then if they do like it, it's like, how far can you take it? And
Yeah.
Star Trek provides this environment where you really nurture your skills and like your love for the sport, and like again, like what that does in like the long run, in the long term, is that you nurture it now when they're young, and this is something that they'll love forever. You're building the next generation.
Yeah.
And not just like next generation, it's next generation people who might not have otherwise gotten into cycling, you know what I mean? And I felt like what they're doing is great, and like,
Yeah.
I wish I could have taken advantage of this as a youth, you know what I mean? Like
That's right.
like had I known about this, had I been like like it's U23, but like I got into this cycling at 18, so like I was at that like age limit where it was like free. It's like anyone under 18 could participate in the program for free. Obviously I was too old for that, but I could, like, had I known, had this been available to me,
Yeah.
I would have I would have loved this, because this would have developed me from a younger age. And,
Totally.
Um,
And that's partially also us as a community having to communicate and advertise the opportunities more, right? I mean, because I think even now there's still plenty of people who don't know about Star Trek,
Yeah.
or don't know enough about it, or just kind of think it's this club or something. And to some extent it is, but
I guess it also kind of like touches on like what we were talking about earlier. Like the track is very far away. Sure, like we talked, like I was talking to some of the
Yeah.
guys that run Star Trek, and like predominantly like, most of their like not students, but like kind of their riders are from like Queens neighborhoods where it's a lot more accessible. But like there are also other people that have gotten their starts at Star Trek, and like that are like in our community now too. like Vince Rhino, he like when we were talking about how he started, he was like, oh yeah, my school we used to like drive out to Star Track and like ride bikes there. Like that's how he got started, you know. And it's just been this place where people have started and grown from there. Like, and a lot of my friends now, like they started riding bikes there. Like friends on and off the bike. Like I have like really good friends like who have helped me develop as like a young professional or like kind of like up and coming adult.
We got cut off there, but we want to talk a little bit more of a couple things, and then maybe we can wrap it up. But so that contrast between, okay, this was Star Trek, which again, there's money that goes into that and that makes it possible, obviously, and they do get, I think, USA Cycling funding too. So
and Roth Foundation.
They get several. They have lots of. But they have people who support the program and they have organizations who support the program. We're thankful for that. So, all that said, recently USA Cycling with a new Olympic development program, which again is targeted toward higher end kind of athletes. Mm-hmm. It's targeting Olympic kind of development track. And it's definitely for someone who wants to go really into the high end. But it's basically, it's kind of like college tuition pricing, and or more. It's not cheap, and not depending on. It's more than CUNY. It's less than Columbia probably.
Yeah.
But
then you look at CUNY, like who goes to CUNY and who goes to Columbia. You know what
exactly.
I mean?
Now, and you brought this up, and I didn't have to prod you, but when we're talking about. When we're talking about issues of inclusion. And then it's a messaging question. Even though, of course, I think they need to do the high-end development. They also have brought more support for HBCUs, historically black colleges, and then tribal colleges. But I do feel like collegiate clubs, other clubs are underappreciated and under-supported, I think, by USA Cycling to some extent. And like you said, the question is, do we want to make cycling the new golf, or do we want to make cycling more mass participation, road cycling specifically, which is really USA Cycling's. They do mountain bike, they do track. So I should say all these other cycling as like a sport. Do we want to make it more accessible and more inclusive, or do we want to make it this big Olympic sport that brings home medals for the USA, and then there's more corporate sponsoring coming in there? And I think you probably want to do a bit of both, but what's your thought on that? You had thoughts?
It's funny because I remember seeing an article like a couple weeks ago. It's like how like cycling is slowly turning into the new golf, like for like startup businesses and like people to take their meetings. Like, you know, you take like a business meeting over like a golf game or whatever. Like I certainly can't relate, but like people are saying like cycling is becoming that new outlet to do something like that. And sure, it's definitely becoming like more and more high end. We touched on this too. Like bikes are getting more and more expensive, and it becomes normalized. Like the cheapest bike is like $2,000. Like the standard bike that you could use to ride at to be competitive, like having like a 10 or even like 11 speed, maybe even 10 speed. Like that's still $2,000. Like that's a big chunk of like money. You know what I mean? So I definitely think the sport is moving towards the high end, but it's like the problem is that it makes it very, very hard for people to get into, especially people like with my background or coming from like underserved communities or anything. And I think that's it. Like that message of like $10,000 to like participate in a program like that was just not. It was pretty tone deaf to like the problem with inclusion in cycling. It's like you think about cycling and most people will think like, hey, cycling is a very like middle-aged white male sport. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And certainly there's something like that we touched on too earlier, was that like for me, like someone who's younger and also not white, it's a little intimidating to come into something like this where you don't feel like there's representation for yourself. And for me, it's like, hearing that someone has the same last name as me, has similar origins to me, it's like, holy shit! Like that.
Shout out to Michael Tan. Yeah.
Shout out Michael Tan. We were talking about this the other day too.
Yeah, I'd love to have him on the show sometime soon too. As racing season comes closer, I think that will be more fitting. But hopefully it comes closer. Yeah.
And I think like having that type of representation and like being seen in the community too is like like having some sort of representation is great, and makes like stuff like Justin Williams, like everything he's doing is like, that's awesome to me, because it's bringing culture that I'm familiar with, like kind of the shoes and the music and like the style and all that, and then mashing it up with cycling. It's so awesome because it's bringing this new light and way for people to appreciate bikes beyond just like like all the Rafa and all like the expensive bikes and all like the carbon. It's like you can still enjoy riding bikes without having to do all of that. And like sometimes I think that's like the message that needs to go out to people is like, it doesn't matter if this person doesn't have the nicest bike, as long as they're riding it and having fun. It's like that's what's important, and definitely something that we should continue to encourage.
So, New York City is not LA. We don't have a Justin Williams or a Corey Williams here or a Legion of LA or whatever.
Yeah.
Raslam Bahadi, who we mentioned.
There's so many of them.
Yeah, we can talk about the women too now, but New York City, it's a fairly diverse community.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to argue, there's little to no demographic data on that. But we could maybe even claim that it's more diverse than LA or the LA area. But the point is more, do you feel at home in the cycling community here? Do you feel like you mentioned a few points where you felt that you were too young for something, and like just having somebody with the same last name really felt like a point of connection and made you feel more at home. Do you feel like the community overall, and it's not like there's some mastermind controlling the community, right? But as a community, can we do better? What can we do better? And do you feel at home? And maybe whatever order or whatever one you want to elaborate on.
I think it definitely took me some time to start feeling at home. I think a lot of it's like in our community, it's like a lot of who you are is like validated by your race results, for sure. And it's like, oh, like this guy, oh, I know him because he's won all of this, he's done all of that, And it's like, yes, we can celebrate everyone's like wins and like victories, but at the end of the day, there's only one winner per race. Like, but then as a community, how do we celebrate each other and like how do we grow each other? And like I think that's one of the things that took me a while to get. It's not always about winning.
Yeah.
Sure, yes, winning is nice, and not that I have an experience with it, but it's a nice experience, but it can't be the only thing that our community looks at. I think I've noticed a lot lately with people in the community that like have been very vocal with like including other people or like making other people feel safe. Like I know for the women's races, like they have like kind of like riding marshals that ride with them and like pace them, and I thought that was so awesome. It's like, wow, like as a Cat 5, like we didn't have that experience in the males field.
I think they only have it for certain development races,
yeah.
but they do. Yeah, I think
know.
they have it for men's. I might be wrong. I think they have a men's version of it now too, but I'll have to check on that.
I thought that was awesome. It's like, hey, like there's someone guiding you and like telling you it's okay that this is happening. You're only gonna get better, and like I think like these changes that I've seen lately have been great to making more people feel safe and like at home and like feel like they're in a good environment to grow as cyclists, and certainly like as racers, we're a very niche part of cycling. Like we're like just because we race doesn't mean like we are not the cyclists. Like there's so many more aspects to like cyclists. Like the guys riding BMX bikes, those are cyclists. Just because I'm riding a road bike really fast doesn't make me the ideal cyclist. You know what I mean? Like
I think in a lot of people's minds, especially the non-bike riding public, we are kind of that, right? If you look, there's like a recent Simpsons episode where they're making fun of bikes.
Oh my god, that was so funny.
Pretty funny, by the way.
I loved it.
I thought my wife had an even better time than I did, but I was like, but yeah, it was great. But I think that's like the stereotype, right? That came out of the Lance Armstrong time a little bit too. I think curriculum on, but you're right. I think on this show also. I'm starting with the people I know or have easier connection to, which is road cyclists, right? But far from us representing the whole community, because there's so many like, you know the track community a little bit, the fixture community a little bit, road riding, you do some off-road riding, right? and these are all kind of different, and that's only the sport element of it, because like I said, BMX kids or the fixed kids just riding for fun, or people commuting, or people doing like the tricks on bikes that I don't even know what the official term for that is, alley cats, and people just using it to get from one place to another. There's a lot to it in the city, and I think definitely we can be better about highlighting that, and I think we can be better about respecting that. Where do you feel most at home? Are you a New York cyclist? Are you more road cycling? Do you feel at home in different parts of the community? You mentioned, okay, you're not so close anymore to the track community, but you're a road cyclist first and foremost. So you casual rider? How do you describe yourself?
I think probably like closer to road riding. I mean, that's where I spend the majority of my time. This year, I'm definitely gonna be the gravel cyclist. I have 2 events like lined up. I have Belgian Waffle Ride in May, I think, and then.
So you're flying out to California?
No, this one's in Asheville. So I had signed up. Yeah, I had signed up for the one last year, but COVID got canceled. Like, knocking on wood.
They're like.
Knocking on wood that like it doesn't get canceled. Like, hopefully, like, I'll make my decision as it comes. If it's safer to do it, like I'm gonna fly out and I'm gonna do that because I that's fun. And then I also have DAM, which is Day Across Minnesota. They have this is the last year that they're doing, and like my friend Jensen told me about it. But I'm doing with him and one other guy, and they have this double version this year. So it's double Day Across America. So it's like Day Across Minnesota. So not Day Across America, not yet. Day Across Minnesota. It's 240 miles from west to east. You start in
240.
Yeah, and that's one direction. So then the double DAM is you go out and then you come back. So that's 400. No, in one ride. So it's 480 miles of like Minnesota gravel.
On gravel.
On gravel. So those are like my two focuses this year.
You do that in 48 hours? No.
We'll see. We'll find out. Maybe you'll have me back on. But
I think betting is illegal in the States, but
it's okay. Place your bets now.
I'll put one in after the show ends. And you probably know what I'm gonna say. But yeah,
it's okay.
That's more motivation. Hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like
I don't think I could do it. So that's why I'm saying that.
I think it'd be fun. There's a lot of people signed up for it, but again, both events, like, I'm only gonna do if it's safe and like like permitting. Like, if it's safe, then I'm gonna do it. But like, if it's not, obviously, I'm just gonna I'm gonna be more reserved and like conservative. I, of course, want to stay healthy.
But I mean, those are also the events that are more likely to be on maybe at this point, or they are being planned for at least.
It's like August and like in May, so they're later on in the year. So we'll see. I mean, we have a little bit of time before I can like make final decisions.
So you're having fun on the bike?
Yeah, having fun on the bike. That's what's important. As long as I'm having fun on the bike, and I'm at home as long as I'm having fun.
Yeah. Which is, I think, all it is about. Once you're not having fun anymore, you can see the fun in it. You have a problem, and you probably shouldn't be riding anymore, right?
Yeah.
I think you got to find a way to make it fun and sustainable fun, kind of for you. I think we have answered most of the questions, and you've really done a lot of really said a lot of interesting things.
I feel like there's so many things we can keep talking about.
Yeah,
too.
we've talked about that inclusion question in a lot of ways, but so maybe excluding the inclusion question, but I want to ask, what else do you see are maybe things we could do better or issues in the community? And again, this doesn't have to be just the road racing community. This can be the bike community at large in your city. Like, you can talk about bike safety, you can talk about, but let's forget about, since we were talking about in quite a bit of detail, the inclusion question and kind of the entry into the sport, which I think we've made a lot of good points about. Anything else that like really like grinds your gears, or like that you're like that is annoying about it, or that we need to do better? Or do you feel like, as somebody who's on the young side riding bikes in the city's a pretty good spot to do that?
I think we have like a lot of emphasis on like underage kids who are getting into the sport.
Okay.
And like I know like one, like I actually chatted with Nathan from Foundation, who's the new
Nathan Brower.
Yeah, Nathan Brower. I'm sorry, I'm like blanking on his official like title for the board.
I think the communications part of CSCA, is that
it's the
he's on the new board member for CSCA, and sorry, we're not familiar with all titles. You can Google it quickly, but
he's basically like the outreach and the kind of like
that's the same thing.
Inclusive,
it might not be called communications, but outreach and
basically like that. But like trying to make the sport more inclusive. We chatted a little when I was doing that ride, and I was like, I wanted to see like what we could do for Star Trek kids and see if like we can get them like CRCA like memberships. And I actually didn't know this, but basically anyone under 18 can race in CRCA for free. Yeah, like I didn't know that. Like but yes, that's great, but also like I feel for people who are getting into the sport, usually like in college, like when you're in college you kind of find hobbies, like kind of paying that like $150 to like race a full season, and like you're in college, it's like, yes, like $150 to us, it's like nothing, because we're gonna take advantage of all those races and we know we're gonna do all of them. But like for someone in that like position, like $150 is a lot. Especially when you're not working and you want to race. Like I think there should be some efforts in like U23.
Or like maybe you have a ton of cash at 21, but in those cases too. But maybe like you can have like a hardship case. You can appeal or say like, look, I'm in college, like I don't have money, then You get
Yeah,
it
yeah.
for free, right? Yeah.
Not that they have to, but like that's one of the things I think would be like really awesome. In terms of cycling though, I think be like also like what grinds my gears is like sometimes people on bikes aren't friendly. Like we were talking about this earlier. Like guys want me to stop being happy. Like
you
what
had
do you mean?
You had a lot of good stories about people being friendly, but you do also get the other end of it.
Yeah, and you get the other end of it, and it's like we're all riding our bikes. Like no one is coming to ride their bikes to be in a bad mood. Like a lot of us, we use bikes as an outlet, and they're like, I think when you come out to ride, you should just bring your best self. Like you don't. There's no like obligation. Like if you're suffering and you're doing hard workout, like yeah, like you're not gonna talk to people. But like if you're just riding and rolling around and like you know, it doesn't take much to just wave and say hello. Like do that, you know. And it's so much. You become so much more welcoming, and then like more people want to ride, and like you know like one thing leads to another. Like it kind of pays it forward. Like you wave to people, other people wave to others, and like and everyone feels happy and home, and like that, I think that's important.
Totally. I think wise words. I don't want to really add more to that. What you've already said, 2021 is gonna bring gravel for you.
Yeah, gravel for me. I'm like this is the bike. I'm gonna start riding this every day.
Assuming that vaccination again. I don't want to put a timeline on it, but assuming that at some point this year we're gonna have a more normal world again, or country or city at least. What else are you looking forward to bike riding wise?
I definitely.
Any other plans? 10, 12 miles, obviously, again next December.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, yeah why not? I mean, I'm gonna get it done this time. I know it. You know, like knocking on wood, but like we'll get it. We'll nail it this time again. I think just for me, it's just continued growth.
Mm-hmm.
Always just like becoming better at what I love. Like I love cycling, so I just want to continue to get better at it. Definitely, if racing comes back, that'll be like more my secondary focus. Now that I have like events that are kind of more solid in front of me, I can like really plan for those. But should like kind of road racing come back, those would be things I plan for afterwards, and then I can still do those races and have fun. Definitely a lot of long rides to prepare me for that 480 miler, but yeah. I think for me, my goals are just have fun on the bike and then.
And long rides, you should be able to do.
I think
there shouldn't be too many people stopping you from doing that as long as your body holds up, right?
And you're safe, you know, like.
Yeah. So let's hope on that. Let's knock on wood for that. And
keep doing it.
A little superstitious. You keep doing it. I like it. Jonathan, it was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was great.
I wish you all the best. I'm really got to look into that Minnesota challenge, especially now.
Yeah.
I'm somewhat familiar with Belgian Waffle Ride. I think a lot of people are looking forward to doing something this year that's more communal again.
For sure.
And I think, I hate belaboring that point. I think we raised a lot of really good points about inclusion, so we're going to bring that back at some point, I'm sure, with other people too.
Yeah. There's just so much that you can't talk in, like, it's like, it's a topic in itself. You got to kind of like dedicate like a whole like section to it.
This might be for the future that I'll have like special with like little 3-4 groups of 4 or something like that, talking about just one particular topic. But we've talked a lot, and I know I'm already asking people to listen to a lot. So this was awesome. I think we've got a good chunk of Jonathan Tan here.
Yeah.
Maybe some more in the future. Maybe you can tell us more in a year from now that you just completed again the 310 miles and you did 420 miles in Minnesota over whatever time it will take you. On gravel, mind you. But Minnesota's flat, so there's that.
That's Flappin' Jensen, who did it, he said it was pretty rolling. So we'll see. Hopefully I lose some weight so I don't like, I don't have to worry about that.
My tongue.
Yeah, we'll see.
Maybe they find a good route. Jonathan, it was a pleasure.
Yeah, it was
I'll
great.
see you soon around at some point. And episode 16 is a wrap.
That's it, man. Thank you.